Hello, Professor Brian. Good afternoon, and I'm Kalia Jones. Today, I will be giving you a reflection on the process of writing essay number 3. I'll also be going over why I chose the stories, the struggles that I faced, and what I learned throughout the process. So, for my essay, I decided to go with 2 authors for the main focus of it, and those authors would be Clive Barker and Stephen King. Now, the reason that I chose Clive Barker is because his story dives into collective identity and nationalism, which links directly to psychological fears of losing oneself to groupthink. Now, on the other hand, King's story focuses on the horror of technological process and how technology can distort our perception of reality, which I thought was very timely given our modern anxieties about technology, all the things that we have going on in the world with the tech. Things. Now, both authors tackle deeply rooted human fears, which made both of them an ideal pairing for exploring how horror can affect psychological, cultural, and social anxieties. So the challenges that I faced would kind of be how to putting everything together. So I wasn't really sure how I would be able to tie the 2 stories together, with one being about group identity and nationalism, and the other being about technological isolation. But in the end, I saw how both stories really explored the fragility of, human identity and a person finding out who they are, and that ultimately was my breakthrough. Another thing that I found kind of difficult was the research, and the research itself wasn't difficult. The only thing that was difficult for me was finding academic sources to back up the psychological theories and the historical context with the 2 stories that I ended up choosing. And the last challenge that I faced was probably providing analysis with a summary, since most horror stories usually have a long description, and I was kind of struggling, avoiding summarizing the plots throughout the story. So with that being said, I decided to shift my focus more on interpreting what horror represented, rather than me retelling the events throughout my essay. Something I enjoyed the most was definitely diving deep into the psychological and cultural theories, such as Froud's uncanny or Jung's collective unconscious. And I say that because my major is nursing, and I'm into psych. That's actually what I want to do later on in life. So that was all really interesting and really cool for me to be able to use tying it into my essay. Another thing that was really cool to me was to sit back and think about how society's fears inspired stories like these, their fears on the 1980s, because there are a lot of stories based on those, such as the Cold War and other things. And what makes that even better is that most stories have a fictional narrative going on. So it's almost like you're getting something that's very much real, but very much fake and make-believe at the same time. Another thing I learned a lot about was how horror can be used not only as a tool, but for society's critique. The way that Barker and King were able to use horror to kind of find the limits of human experience, whether through a story or collective identity, psychological issues, anything like that, was just really fascinating to me. I believe a helpful aspect of the process for me was probably being able to break down each story's psychological and cultural theme, which made the writing process more structured and organized, and kind of gave me a base, a really good base, a solid base of where I would need to start. Using the secondary scholarly sources and the cited work pages also was a big help for me. For me, the only thing that was less helpful was the MLA formatting and the research citations. It wasn't challenging. I just feel like it slowed my writing down, but that's part of the process, so it's not really nothing I complain about. What this essay taught me is that horror isn't really just about, being scared or monsters or gore, any of that. It's about how you can reflect your deepest fears or, anxieties, and kind of point out your own sense of identity. This process also helped me with my terrible writing skills, so I loved it about it. It was very informational. It helped me a lot. And finally, I just feel more confident to be able to, connect my abstract theories to real world examples and use them to support my arguments.